So Nintendo confirms that to use the brand new C button on the Nintendo Switch 2, whether it's on the right Joy-Con or the, some of the other controllers, the GameCube controller is going to have it. Of course, the new Pro controller is going to have it. In order to use that C button, you're going to have to pay to use it, essentially. This is a report from Polygon and other people, and a lot of people are losing their minds over this because they're saying, hey, this is a paywalled button, basically. But let's discuss that here in this video and kind of try to think through this, from all sides and as thoroughly and reasonably as possible, if that's possible. Is that possible on the internet? Probably not. Welcome back, my friends, to another video here on the channel. If you do enjoy this kind of content, leave a like, subscribe for more. If you dislike it, let me know what you dislike so I can improve the content in the future. And it might just be that you just dislike my takes. But I'm going to try to see this as reasonably as possible, as neutral as possible, and just kind of throw a couple different thoughts out there. But what am I talking about first and foremost? If you don't know, the brand new C button is this button that was basically teased. We didn't really know it was a C button at first, which is kind of like a square button that had no kind of letter on it until like a day before the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. And then they finally revealed the C button. They revealed what it was. If you push it, you can go into this whole like chat functionality. If you don't know anything about that, essentially there's a brand new chat functionality. It kind of looks like Discord in a sense. Now, you can, of course, keep your gameplay full screen, or you can have it where your gameplay is kind of a little bit shrunk down and you see all your friends that you're chatting with at the bottom. Again, it kind of looks like Discord a little bit in that sense. You can also share your screen and your gameplay, which is, it could be helpful. It could be useful if you're trying to share your gameplay with friends. Be like, hey, check this out, or let me show you how to do this, or hey, can you show me how to do that in Zelda? Like, I don't know where to go in Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, whatever. It can be useful. You can also turn your camera on if you get the Nintendo Switch 2 camera accessory, and you can have that kind of implemented with it. So there's a lot of functionality. The new console itself, the Switch 2, built into the console, it has a microphone in it. So it's kind of weird it's not built into the actual controller, but essentially it's going to pick up your voice from across the room. Will it sound great? I guess time will tell. From what I've heard, it's a little echoey, but I would have liked to see it kind of directly on the controller itself. So I'm not sure why they did it just on the console instead of kind of baking it into the controllers. Maybe because that would just raise the price for the controllers, if you were to buy controllers separately. Maybe that's an element. I don't know. It would be nice if they would include an ability to use various headsets. I know with the Pro controller, the new Pro controller that is, there's a headphone jack. I'm not 100% sure if you can use a microphone though through that jack or not, but at least there is headphones in that jack. So now that you're kind of caught up on all of that information, what is this whole thing with the C button, and the fact that you got to pay for it? Well, if you go over to Polygon, you can see Nintendo confirms you'll have to pay to use the Switch 2 C button, and it's going to require a recurring fee. Basically, what does that mean? Well, if we go down, Bill Trinan told Polygon in a recent interview about this whole thing. He says you would be able to find out about the Nintendo Switch online subscription there and get some sense of functionality of the functionality if you were to push the C button and were not subscribed to Nintendo Switch Online. So assumingly it's going to be kind of like, on, let's say, like another console like PlayStation, right? Let's say you go to play online multiplayer, you don't have PS Plus. What's going to happen? It's going to bring you to a PS Plus page, and it's going to inform you about the PS Plus subscription, and hey, you want to play online multiplayer games, you got to pay some money, and that's how it's going to work, right? If you do that on PlayStation. And similarly, it's going to be like that with the Nintendo Switch chat button, Nintendo Switch 2 chat button. So part of that is like people are like, well, that's weird. A whole button is tied behind a paywall. I mean, they could have not included it on a button. It could have been something like, PlayStation, where you'd have to push the home button, then you would have to go over to like a chat section and navigate through a bunch of hurdles. But they decided to just include it as a button itself on the controller to make it more streamlined and just, instantly kind of jump in instead of having to go through kind of a multi-step process to kind of open it up. It's kind of like the share button on PlayStation, right? If you hold it down, it brings up a menu that you can just directly go into, different share capabilities, whether it's video or whatever. Obviously, Nintendo also has the share button, but it works a little different. If you hold it down, it records a video, on at least the Nintendo Switch 1. They might change it down the line and then how it works, but as of right now, that's how it works. And then if you just kind of single press it, then it's a screenshot. So basically what's happening here is a lot of people are getting really upset about this. Now, if you actually scroll down, Trinan says that the C button price tag is because game chat is part of the overall platform experience. Nintendo Switch Online really is a critical piece of the Nintendo Switch 2 experience and whatnot. Now, the thing about this is a lot of people are very upset because like, hey, I can't use the chat functionality unless I pay a subscription, which I like. Listen, I understand, right? The thing is like, I think there's a lot of a hard time with people differentiating between what is a reasonable business choice that we just dislike versus what is actually a greedy choice that we also dislike. We often kind of conflate the two where it's like, well, I dislike this, so it must mean that the company is greedy. And I don't think that, I think that's kind of like a false equivalency. I don't think that's like a one-for-one kind of thing. And I think that if we kind of take a step back and think it through, is it preferred? No. Is it even the best option from our perspective? No. It's like the whole thing with Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, that whole, game, which I don't want to get into a sidetrack, but for example, with that, it's a $10 game. Should it be included with the Nintendo Switch 2? Would it add value to it? I think so. Am I mad in thinking that Nintendo is greedy for charging $10? No, I don't think so either. Both things can be simultaneously true. I can dislike the choice and also recognize that it's not necessarily a greedy choice. Now with this, again, people are conflicted about it. I would argue that in 9 times out of 10, not all times, but in most cases, people are not going to use the chat functionality unless they're playing multiplayer games, and multiplayer games do cost to you need a Nintendo Switch Online subscription, just like any other platform, because the servers, I guess, it costs to maintain. There's resources going into this, effort, work, people working on these things. And again, Japan's kind of work ethic is that they have a very strong work ethic, and they have a very kind of honor-based system where it's like, they really believe that when people work on something, they should be paid for it. That's why they don't like giving things away completely for free. That's why Wii Sports was not free in Japan. It was only free in other regions because Reggie really pushed for it with Miyamoto-san. But that's just not the Japanese mindset. And on the contrary, the Westerner mindset is like kind of almost on the other extreme, where it's like very self-entitled kind of views, right? Where it's like, gimme. I deserve everything. I want everything. And so when you have those kind of two worlds clash, I mean, it just becomes a more chaotic mess. Now, I'm not saying that like Nintendo is right for all their choices or anything. I'm talking specifically about this topic right now. And it could be, thought that application could be used in other areas to consider like, hey, is it reasonable? Is it just that I don't like it, but it's still a reasonable choice? I don't know. Let's go over to the Nintendo Switch Online page, because I want to talk about this real quick, because people are mad that it's tied behind a subscription. How much does the subscription cost, and what are you getting for it? So there's a whole page here, but if you go down to the bottom, I'm on the USD site. I'm Canadian, but I went to the USD site because I assume most people watching are probably American. If you go down here, there's an individual and family. Family basically allows you to have I think it's like 5 or 6 people on the account. So if you split the cost, it actually ends up being cheaper in that sense. So we'll talk about that in a second. But for just the basic Nintendo Switch Online, it's $20 a year. Assumingly, the chat functionality is going to be under this version. There is also the Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack, which is $50 a year, which is still relatively cheap compared to other consoles like PS Plus and Xbox and all that. Now, arguably, people will be like, yeah, but there's more being offered on those consoles. Kind of. For example, you need Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack in order to be able to get the classic games like N64, Game Boy Advance, $50 a year. Now, do I prefer, when Nintendo did Virtual Console where you could just buy individual games? I think so, because then that allows you to pick and choose. At the same time, this is not necessarily a bad format. It's just, subscription models are something that people are not as much of a fan of. I don't like them very much as well. A lot of companies are doing that more and more. If you were to get the classics like PS1 games and all that on PlayStation, you need PS Plus Premium, which is like through the roof in terms of its pricing. It's like over $100 USD if I remember correctly. So that's just for the classics. Now again, assumingly the chat functionality is going to be under just the normal subscription base. So $20 a year, what does that get you? Well, that gets you online play, of course. You can play multiplayer games online. That will get you access to the NES and the Super NES classic games, as well as the Game Boy. Also the Nintendo Music app, which is like, you could be like, okay, but what's the point? I guess look up the music online. Yeah, it's just a nice little kind of bonus that they have. Like, it's almost like their version of like Spotify, but it's all Nintendo Music, and it's just, I don't know. I think it's a cool app. It's not for everybody, and it's not some like revolutionary thing or anything. It's just like a nice little bonus. You also get Save Data Cloud, right? Which again, it costs to run all these servers, the cloud servers for your save data, the online multiplayer servers. You get access to the Nintendo Switch Online app, some of the functionality in there, special offers and everything like that. But again, if you get the expansion pack, you also get the other stuff here, which includes stuff like the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass, which if I remember correctly, includes like 16 tracks or whatever, the Animal Crossing, New Horizons, Happy Home Paradise DLC, the Splatoon 2 Octo Expansion DLC, Sega Genesis, Game Boy, N64, GameCube games. So there's a lot of value there. If you go to the family one, it's $35 a year, and you can have up to 8 accounts. I was wrong. I said 6. It was 8. You and 7 other people. If you all chip in $4, $4.30 per person, if you're splitting this between 8 people, which is insane value. That is dirt cheap. So again, this is not me trying to say like, oh, this is a great idea, good job, Nintendo. This is me saying like, is it that big of a deal? Is it that big of a deal that Nintendo is doing this? It costs resources, it costs work and effort. Again, Nintendo believes people should be paid for their work, even if it's a small amount, which I think is reasonable. And I think part of this is getting again kind of blown up because people are really mad about Mario Kart 8 World, for example, being like $80 USD, which is a whole other topic, which I don't like either. I dislike. Is it worth it? I don't even want to touch that topic until we really see the Mario Kart World Direct and see kind of hopefully have some reasoning in whether what's Nintendo's thinking behind justifying this price tag. Maybe we'll be a little bit more convinced. I don't think we'll like it. I don't think we're going to like it either way. I don't think we're going to be like, yeah, great, awesome, Nintendo, it's fine, I'll give you more money. None of us want to pay more money, right? But in terms of the chat functionality being tied behind Nintendo Switch Online, if we're thinking about this reasonably, do you still think it's I mean, again, I think we all dislike it. I think it'd be better if it was open up to everybody, and it is going to be open up to everybody until March 2026, to be fair. So for the first like 9 months or so, it is going to be open for everybody to try out. And maybe Nintendo changes their mind down the road and they're like, you know what, we'll just leave it open for everybody after that. Who knows? Anything's possible. But yeah, I mean, what do you guys think? Is this something that you just dislike, or is it that you dislike and you really do think it is a greedy choice? And why? I mean, let's try to actually think these things through and have civil, reasonable discussions about this, if possible. Sorry, I didn't mean to make this rant super long, but it was a topic that I wanted to cover because it's just blowing up like crazy online. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. Like I said, I'm trying to look at this, from a neutral perspective. I don't like having to pay more. I don't like more things being locked behind, paywalls or whatever. But at the same time, is it unreasonable? Is it greedy? I don't think so either. So it's like, I'm kind of in the middle where it's like, I'm going to get shot from both sides of this conversation, it feels like. So it is what it is. Stick around for more. Thanks for watching. Till the next one. Game on. See you guys later.